All right, good morning, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mark Graham. I'm NRCA's Vice President of Technical Services. In English, that means I'm the senior staff person on the technical side of the organization. Spoken at RCAT a number of times, and actually in the last year, I didn't realize it, but I've done 3 programs. So I'm going to try to do some stuff that I didn't do here before. So for you repeaters for me, you're not hearing the same stuff. I will probably use the same jokes, and that's just because I think they're hilarious. Nobody else does. But if you're interested in some of the stuff I've done here in the past, you can get an electronic copy of these slides off my personal website, and then you're going to see a lot of things hyperlinked. So feel free to grab the slides, and if you're connected to the internet, it's marksgraham.com. Hey, Billy, how you doing? I like that. Front row, same spot all the time. That's right. We're just creatures of habit. Cowboys is cowboys. And have any of you guys been to any of these programs? Were you at my Houston program? Maybe a couple of you? No? Oh, wow. I can use the same jokes, and you're going to be new to you. They're going to be new to you. Cool. Lately, I've been starting presentations with a little bit of discussion on the roofing industry market as a whole and what's kind of going on. And I'm going to encourage you to use this information to kind of benchmark what you're doing in your companies. And hopefully by the end of the next couple of slides, you're going to see where I'm going with this. And if I'm standing in front of the screen, wave to me, okay? I have that habit. The Asphalt Roofing Manufacturers Association, hey Brad, does a market condition survey. In other words, their members track and report back to ARMA the number of rolls they ship every month. And that becomes a little bit of an interesting tracking device for us in the industry. And ARMA is good enough to actually publish this information in a generic form. SPRI, the single-ply manufacturers, and PEMA, the ISO manufacturers, used to do this, and they stopped doing it in the last year. Wonder why? Because their numbers weren't going up. Okay? But ARMA is publishing this. And for you young folks, you can read this. I can't see that, so for the speaker, I blow that up, and then that helps the experienced guys up here see it also, okay? Lots of numbers there, but I'm going to ask you to focus on year-to-date 2023 numbers. This is through June 30th. So the new market condition report will be out here in the next week or so, actually. But 85 million squares of shingles were produced and shipped in the first half of the year. Grab that number in your head, 85 million squares of shingles. That is a lot, okay? And interestingly enough, that's 3.5% off of last year. Q2 2022 was relatively low, but take a look at that number, 51 million squares in the second quarter of this year. And if we just do fun with math, 85 minus 51, that means the first quarter was pretty low. I can tell you third quarter, I already know what the number is pretty substantial. We are tracking on the shingle side of the business to have a record year, about 170 million squares of shingles in the US. And that number is, oh shit, that's a lot of roofing. The interesting thing about this, folks, is we've really not had, a tornado that's tried to blow a state off the map. We've really not had a lot of hail. We've had some, but relatively not a disproportionate amount. And granted, we're early October. Mother Nature hasn't decided yet to blow Florida off the map yet this year. She still has a month and a half to go. So that's real roofing business. And that's pretty cool. Built up numbers, they're not great. And this -10 is pretty startling, actually. But I can tell you last year was +9. So if you're a -10 off of a +9, it's like, yeah, it's pretty much the same. And in some markets, there's still a lot of built-up work. Modified is pretty much tracking, and the shingle business in Canada is just not good right now. That's because they had a hard winter, a lot of carryover work, so there was a lot of shingles sitting on the ground coming into this year, so they didn't have first quarter sales. So just kind of an interesting thing. And again, if you're interested in this data, link in the bottom corner. For the old guys, I blew it up. ABC, not the supply company, but the Associated Builders and Constructors, take some federal government numbers coming out of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Producer Price Index, and they kind of roofing or construction it up. And you see this distributed in the trade press quite a bit. And I like to pick on journalism majors because they're easy to pick on and can't defend themselves. The number they usually cite is that one, the total inputs for construction. So if you see the headlines, that's probably the number they're citing. Who cares what that number is? What we care about is something like that. Crude petroleum up 9% in August. It's going to be up another 9% in September. But look at that, 66% increase since February of 2020. And then the other one, I got to chat with the Bureau of Labor Statistics at some point. We actually do talk to them quarterly. We got to call roofing something other than prepared asphalt, tar roofing, and siding products. But notice that's up about 40% overall in the last couple of years. The number I want you folks to look at, though, is that one in the top right corner, up about 41%. And sometime when you got a few minutes on your hands, take a look at your business. Has your pricing done that in the last couple of years? If it has not, have a drink and a conversation with yourself, because I think you're cheating yourself out of. That number does not include labor and overhead. That's just material. So in reality, in the roofing business, our costs and hopefully our revenues and our profits are up more than that. And if they're not, have a little heart-to-heart with yourself. Okay. NRCA is part of a roofing industry association group that does just started doing a market condition report specific to re-roofing. And this really doesn't exist anywhere else in the construction business. So we're not getting huge numbers on this, but I'm going to share with you what we have. Customer inquiries, the number of phone calls we get, the number of times we get an email that says, I need a new roof, can you give me a price? 77% of the folks in this survey have indicated this quarter's numbers are equal to or greater than the same quarter last year. And I'll be honest with you, that number surprised me a little bit because last year was pretty rocking and rolling. So if we're doing better than last year, I guess that's better. Same thing with contracts, 75% are equal to or greater than last year. And backlog, I thought this was really interesting. 81% of our respondents are reporting some type of backlog. And when I say some type, I'm talking about more than 1 month. Interesting, 46% are saying backlog is more than 3 months. And let me tell you, I'm talking to a lot of contractors around the country. I was in Kansas City last week, Kansas City yesterday, Orlando last week. The folks I'm talking to are saying backlog is out beyond 6 months. This is a little bit complicated, but I'm showing you this for a reason. All this gets kind of digested into an index. And an index is just a relative number. A number of 50 or greater is positive. A number below 50 is declining. And then what we've done here is put quarterly data together. So first quarter of 2020, all the way across to second quarter 2023. Steep slope, low slope, combo in total. We have 2 quarters where the steep slope business was not all that positive, and those were basically coming into this year. But things have actually turned around nicely, like the shingle numbers I showed you. The low slope business is well above 50, so things are rocking and rolling on the low slope side. Now these are national numbers. Things might change locally. The roofing business tends to be very, very, very local. So you know, you might not be tracking like that, but I'm just giving you some relative numbers. Third quarter survey is currently out. We'd like you to participate. So if you hit up our website, you're going to find this link right away. If you get my slides, you'll find it on that page. But feel free to complete the survey. It takes about 5 minutes. And more data, the better. Okay? Now I'm going to change directions and get into what you came to listen to me about. And the first topic is really not a technical issue. It's more of a health and safety issue, but I'm feeling pretty strong about this one, so I'm going to talk about it. And what we're talking about is radio frequency radiation coming off of cell phone towers. And this is, in my opinion, becoming a big deal for us in the roofing industry. I just went on the internet and grabbed the first rooftop cell phone tower photo I found, and that is an absolutely abysmal application. That's a cell phone tower hanging up there on a couple of concrete blocks. Whatever company that is should be shot. That's what I would call a temporary cell phone tower. But this type of thing is not unusual to see some type of cell phone application on roofs. At the same time, we all realize it, but maybe we don't realize it. The cell phone industry has kind of exploded. We've gone from what was never described as 1G or 2G, but that's what it was. Then we went to 3G, then we went to 4G, then we went to 5G, and now we're talking about 5 point something G or enhanced or whatever the cell phone company is calling it. What that actually means is higher frequencies coming out of that antenna. 3G was somewhere about 300 megahertz. In other words, not that far above FM radio, okay? 5G is up, depending on the cell phone company, up about 39 gigahertz. In other words, several orders of magnitude stronger than just a couple of years ago. And then the challenge becomes, you guys end up putting a roof underneath these things or next door to this, and your guys in the field are exposed to the radiation. So the strength of the field, the radiative strength, has increased significantly in the last couple of years. Okay. Also, interestingly enough, OSHA has not discovered this yet. So don't talk about it outside this room. If they don't hear about it, that's a good thing. Cell phone applications in this country are actually regulated by the FCC. And I'd be willing to bet you've never seen an FCC inspector on a roof. I've never seen an FCC inspector outside. Okay. One of the cool things about my job is, since I'm the technical director for NRCA, the Canadian equivalent of NRCA invites me up twice a year, and actually I go up in 2 weeks to sit on their national technical committee. And apparently I'm called an ex officio member. I don't know what that means in French. I think ex officio means bald old guy. But anyway, and the Canadian Roofing Contractors Association just came out with a bulletin on radiation out of cell phone towers. First page is what I basically went through with you. Second page is some recommendations on things to look out for. First point is look around. If you see one, look into it further. Second bullet, look for warning signs. I didn't like that wording, but I'll show you what a warning sign is. And then contact the building owner or the antenna leasee. They will usually pretty gladly give you information on their tower because they incur liability. And their way of not incurring liability is giving you the warnings on what that tower is shooting out at you guys, okay? So you might see it signed like that. I'll be real honest with you, you're not going to see an ownership sign anymore because cell phone towers are actually terrorism targets. If you remember the knucklehead that tried to blow up Nashville a couple of years ago, that was all about phones, okay? So, and also I'm going to say most towers are not owned by AT&T, Verizon, and whoever. They're owned by external leasing companies. But you will see some type of signage, probably on a roof hatch or by a penthouse door, that gives a number, and there's usually a reference number of that site. Call it. Hey, I'm going to be doing roofing work on your cell phone tower location. What can you tell me? Then there's a couple different warning signs, blue, yellow. It's interesting what projectors do to that sign. That's looking orange to me, but it's actually red. This means different levels of radiation. So this means the public shouldn't be roaming around. Well, they shouldn't be, it's on a roof. This one means we're above the FCC guidelines. This one means we're really above the FCC guidelines. So when you begin to see yellow or orange, the warning sign should go off in your mind. Are you guys seeing any of this from your safety guy? Any training? Anything like that locally? Is this new information to you? Okay, that's all right to say that. That makes me feel good. That means I'm doing the right thing. Okay. Look for these. Look for these. And just between us friends, this job should have a different degree of markup as you go down the line because you have more exposure and risk. Okay? Go ahead.
Is there, who's going to tell us, who's going to tell us what the risks are for the exposure? Sorry. Yeah.
Visual assessment, you look for those signs and you contact the building owner. The building owner is probably going to kick you over to the cell phone company. And the cell phone company is going to give you either a site survey or a roof plan which will show the specific orientation or projection of the radiation on the roof. Interestingly enough, the projection is typically very narrow and doesn't cover the entire roof. So I'm encouraging you folks to seek that out, because when you set the job up, you're not going to want to set it up in the middle of the exposure level. You're going to want to keep moving through that exposure level, not lingering there. And depending on who the cell phone company is and what the usage is, I'm seeing a lot of them just shut it down for you. Yeah. The interesting thing with 5G, higher power, higher frequency, but it does not have the range that 3G does. So what does that mean? The cell phone companies need more towers. So towers are closer together. So a cell phone company might say, God, I got roofers up here for a couple of days, or they're going to specifically be in the penthouse these 3 days. I'm just going to shut that tower down and we'll let the neighboring towers take over. The other thing with 5G though, because it's a shorter wave, the towers are actually lower. So back in the olden days of cell phone towers, they were always on the highest rise building in town. I'm seeing them on 2-story buildings now. So it's not unusual to see a cell phone tower on something low rise. I've even seen them on condo developments and townhouses and things like that because there's a high concentration of folks there. So to answer your question, it's going to come from the cell phone tower provider's site survey or roof plan. And I've decided not to show you one here because I don't want to get that deep into it. But the tower company will actually have a pretty well drawn plan of the roof with their fields on it. And they're going to identify them as blue, yellow, or red. Okay? So ask. Now the other thing about this cell phone radiation, which concerns me a little bit, the symptoms, the personal symptoms of it are very similar to heat stress. I'll be real honest with you. I'm not going to be able to tell the difference. Your guys aren't going to be able to tell the difference. It's going to be somebody with a PhD behind his name that's going to tell the difference. So what do we do with heat stress? We tell the guys to go sit down in the shade, and we give them something to drink. Well, with radiation, when they sit down, let's just hope there's not a cell phone tower on the shady side of the penthouse where we tell them to sit. See where I'm going with this? We need to rethink a little bit differently here. We had a lot of arguments about this up in Canada, recommending personal RF monitors when there are signs. You guys have seen these if you ever had an x-ray. The x-ray tech is usually wearing something that looks like that. It's actually a radiation dosimeter. The ones now are actually pretty cool though. If you walk through that RF ray, if you get like right here, it'll beep. And tell the guy, okay, you're getting close, back off. The monitors become a double-edged sword. They scare your employees, which creates a problem for you. I'm going to look at it the other way. It actually creates a paper trail and documentation that their exposure is not problematic. Okay? So in Canada, I was lobbying for mandatory monitoring in these situations. I think what they're saying here is think about using, okay? And when I did this presentation yesterday, somebody caught this wording, protective clothing. I don't know what cell phone tower proof protective clothing is. So I actually shot Troy Figuerera, my counterpart up in Canada, an email last night. What's protective clothing in Canada? I think it's a plaid flannel shirt, but I'm not sure. Okay. I do the best I can. Some references. The US stuff is not that great. This is kind of the US construction industry's recommendations on what to do with rooftop radiation, and it's talking about 3G phones. So, all right, it's what? 4 generations of iPhones out of date. I mean, even I'm more advanced than that. Interestingly enough, if you're just diving down the Google rabbit hole sometime, and if you want to look at probably what's state of the art on this topic, Australia, the country of Australia. The only problem there is all their cell phone radiation is upside down. I got one laugh out of that. I thought that was funny as hell. Last time I was here in my last trip around the country, I talked about underlayment and really kind of confused the hell out of people. And I think a lot of folks didn't realize how complicated underlayment has become. So this time, this trip through the country, I'm basically showing folks the code language and confusing you even more. So I'm the messenger, all right? International Building Code 2021 edition. If you have the code on your shelf, great. If you don't, those are links to it for free. So now everybody has the code. Underlayment is in section 1507.1.1 of the building code. Underlayment shall comply with a couple of ASTM standards, all asphaltic underlayments, and comply with tables 1, 2, and 3. Table 1 is right there. Notice there's columns. Columns mean complication, and this level of complication affects you folks. When I did this presentation in Kansas City yesterday, they were all in this column, so it was easy for them. The differentiation between the two columns is wind speed, though. And the differentiating wind speed is 140 miles an hour, design wind speeds. That's a map of the United States. We don't have anybody that's really young in this room, but I have to explain, well, maybe Brad. I have to explain the really young folks that that is a map. That's what our country looks like. Because you didn't have geography class, did you? You did? Okay, you're an old soul. So if I have young guys in my audience, I have to explain there's a folded up version of this in your GPS, along with, at least in my GPS, a little Australian woman that tells me where I am, okay? But in Texas, we get up to that 140 mile an hour number right around the coastline. And I think that's Houston, right? So we're at about 120 or 130. Depending on the occupancy type of the building, though, that 140 isobar actually moves inland as far as that line. So depending on where you are in the state, that right-hand column may apply to you. What's the difference between the third column and the fourth column? In roofer, the third column is number 15 underlayment. The fourth column is number 30 underlayment, is the minimum required by the code. A bunch of incoherent language on application. You folks know this. 2-inch side laps, 4-inch head lap, offset end laps by 6 feet. If you're in the higher wind speed region, side laps should be 4 inches. No acknowledgement for synthetics that aren't 3 feet wide. We'll get there. This is where it gets complicated. And if we had an attorney in the room, I'd quickly blow past this slide. This is awful, awful, awful code language. Fasten the underlayment sufficiently to hold it in place. What is meant is keep it in place while you're putting the shingles down. Legally, that would be interpreted as the underlayment shall never blow off. So we'll fix that in the next code hearing. But this is what's required for underlayment detachment in the high wind regions, in other words, over by the coast. Let me translate this into roofer. So many nails and tin caps or plastic caps on the roof that you don't see the underlayment anymore, and the underlayment is no longer functional because it has so many holes in it. Okay? But that's what the code says. There's a couple of exceptions to all this. The first of which is one actually I personally like. Tape the joints. Roll the underlayment out. Why do I like that? Not from the code perspective, but if you've ever had picture framing on a shingled roof, This pretty much takes care of that. Because all picture framing is vapor drive through board joints. And this is another tin cap heaven. That's just ridiculous. And then if you're using ice and water shield type product, a peel and stick, that's the language there. I've tried to turn all that into English in an article I did in the May issue of the magazine. Feel free to grab that article, and hopefully I explained it in the article better than the code folks did in their language. Synthetic underlayments have been added for the 2024 building code. In other words, it's going to streamline compliance for you folks quite a bit. You're not going to have to ask for special permission from the building code official. And then the building code official goes, roofing, really? You know, code officials aren't too fired up about roofing. That's my note to talk about nail base insulation. Any of you folks using nail base at all? No? Couple? The amount of calls I get with people having trouble with nail base is frustrating to me. We need to, I think, engage at a little higher level of common sense in nail base insulation. Billy's probably going to remember in the late 70s, early 80s, Owens Corning extolled the virtues of 2 layers of fiberglass insulation on roof decks and how it reduces membrane stress and things along that line. The same physics applies here that it does here. If you're putting R30 or something high R, a nail base on a roof, do it in 2 layers. Put down a layer of ISO, put down a thin layer of nail base on top of it so you can stagger the joints, because all those joints become as sinks for heat loss and also vapor drive. Okay? So you'll actually probably get off a little bit cheaper, at least on the material standpoint. So consider multiple layers.
Can I ask you a question?
It depends if I like it or not. Go ahead, you can always ask me a question.
We're finding that 15 and 30 pound felt gets saltier and saltier. And we use the fiber, yeah.
You're using synthetics?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I roofed my house and my lake house in the last 2 years, just so you know. I have synthetics on both of them, even though they don't comply with the code. So if you take that as indication.
So much better than 15 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you have the door machine, you got to take the thing.
Right. I agree. I agree with you entirely.
Whenever we see the manufacturers tell us that no-fluff is warranted for 4 decent Christians.
We learned that in the 70s, didn't we? That was a product called Bond Ply. On vented nail base, we are actually seeing more leakage through board joints than we are venting through the ridge. And we just started a research project that's looking into rafter length versus required ventilation thickness. Mother Nature is interesting. She's going to take the path of least resistance. And if she has a choice, am I going to sneak through that board joint, or am I going to climb all the way up that rafter to the ridge? Which one is she going to do? The picture framing we're seeing on vented nail base right now is a big litigation issue. And the manufacturers are typically really nice how they handle it. You installed it improperly. Remember what I said about taping board joints? Makes a big difference here. A couple weeks ago, I did a presentation for an ISO manufacturer, and it was interesting. It was kind of a VOC I shouldn't say that. Voice of the customer presentation to ISO manufacturers. And it was kind of cool because they brought in their 7 plant manufacturers from around the country. My first question is, how many of you guys have ever been on a roof? and we got a lot of this. It's like, shit, guys, I got to get you on a roof. If you make this stuff for us, you got to see how it's used. And actually, I'm going back in a couple weeks and I'm going to drag them up on some roofs. But I asked them, guys, what are you having problems with? And the thing they said is nail base with FRT plywood on it, or nail base with pressure treated plywood. And every once in a while I blurt something out without thinking. And I said, that has to be the stupidest thing I've ever heard of today. And they're like, why? I go, what type of problems are you having? They go, well, it's wet, it's shrinking, cupping, bowing, and it's taking the ISO with it. Let's think about it. What is FRT or nail-based plywood? It's plywood or OSB that's manufactured just like normal stuff. It's kiln dried. Then what happens in the mill? It's re-wetted with pressure treatment or fire treatment. And in the case of these ISO manufacturers, then it gets shipped off to the ISO plant. They laminate it in line, and what does the ISO manufacturer do at the end of the line? They shrink wrap the bundles. So what do they actually do? They bundle the moisture into the packaging. Well, no wonder the stuff is walking all over the roof. So these guys, these 7 plant managers, actually some pretty sharp people, some pretty cool guys. Well, what do? I go, well, that's easy. Remember the market survey information I showed you at the beginning of the presentation? Are we in a market right now where you can say, I don't want to do that job. I'm going to let somebody else do it. There has to be a point where you walk away from a job. It's just not worth it. And I'm going to suggest to you, if you have a spec that has FRT or pressure treated plywood in the top layer of a nail base, walk away. Let your competitor eat up hours and insurance payments and settlements on it. It's not worth it. If we were in a market where everybody's struggling for work, I might have a different opinion, but right now, don't bother. Don't do stupid things. You got competitors that'll do that for you. Okay? You understand the concept though? We're packaging the moisture into the bundle and we're shrink wrapping the bundle. Then you guys are dropping it on the roof and then trying to install it and then put shingles on top of it and get surprised why it doesn't work. Okay. Switching over to low slope, and as long as I was talking about ISO manufacturers, PEMA, the Polyiso Sanitary Installation Manufacturers Association, has a quality mark program. The program has nothing to do about quality, but I'll talk about it anyway. If you go on PEMA's website, polyiso.org, you'll see that 7 manufacturers are participating in the program. RMAX is not. I have a call into RMAX, several calls. My last call actually says, let me tell you why I'm calling. That way you don't have to talk to me, just say yes or no when you call me back. My question is, why aren't you participating? And I haven't heard back from them. So evidently there's a problem with incoming phone calls at RMAX. If I say that enough, they'll probably call me. The interesting thing about this is they publish a quarterly conformance report. This is the conformance report for the 4th quarter of last year. It was published in July of this year. Why is there a 6-month lag? I'll explain it to you in a minute. R value, or LTT of ISO, is measured on 2-inch, 3-inch, and 4-inch boards once every 3 years. Did you realize that? That truckload of ISO is actually QC'd once every 3 years. Do you struggle with that like I do? Yeah. New to the program this year is every quarter, PEMA has a testing lab go out to distribution and pull samples of one of these thicknesses and run the regular R value test on it, and they condition the board for 180 days. That 180-day conditioning is why there's a 6-month lag. The December report comes out in June. And the really, I think, cool thing for an association is PEMA publishes the results. So these are the plants that comply. I tend to be a bit of a cynical person. I think you've picked up on that with me, Billy, over the years. Tend to look at things a little bit differently than everybody else. It's just the way I was raised, I think. So I have a mental list of every ISO plant in the country in my head, and I take that list and work it off that list, and the ones that aren't on that list are the ones that aren't complying, right? So locally, who are you buying ISO from? Well, there's a Corsicana plant, there's an Atlas Gainesville, there's a Terrell, Texas. Anybody else getting ISO locally? Interestingly enough, in Texas, things are going pretty well. I can tell you, though, that Wholesome has a plant in DeForest, Illinois, Madison, or DeForest, Wisconsin, Madison, that hasn't been on this list yet. They also have a plant in Salt Lake City. Manville guy has to block his ears right now. Bremen, Indiana is not on this list. And I'm told there's one other secret plant somewhere, but I haven't figured out where it is yet. I'm assuming you're seeing some product come out of Hillsboro. That plant is so new, it's not gone through the cycle yet. Okay. My concern with this, though, is PEMA is telling you 6 months after you bought a product and installed it that it doesn't comply with its data sheet. That provides you with a bit of contractual liability that you don't want. I've tried to explain to PEMA that that's problematic, and they said, well, we have a disclaimer on our bulletin. Okay, you win the stupid award for the day. The disclaimer doesn't do the customer any good. The disclaimer actually creates liability for the customer. So the new quarterly report will be out next week. If you're buying a truckload of ISO, don't tell me in 6 months what the R value is. Tell me today what the R value is. Okay? Push back. If you take one thing away from this presentation today, other than maybe the cell phone radiation issue, we as an industry need to get away from selling R value. There's just implied liability there that it is very difficult to defend you against. Remember back in the olden days, Billy, we would sell fiberglass by its thickness. We'd sell fiberboard by its thickness. You know, we weren't selling a 2.78 R value layer of perlite board insulation. We were selling a 1-inch. We shouldn't be selling a roof that has R30 ISO on it. We should be selling a roof that's, you can play with your own math, 2 layers of 2.6. That you can verify. And there's actually tolerances in the ASTM standard. And anything that involves a measurement in the ruler confuses the hell out of an attorney. Okay? Let's not sell R's. There's liability there that is difficult to sell. Go ahead, Billy.
Having been in the spray gear thing, but phone business some, not now. But R value is a very poor way to measure thermal conductivity.
Yes.
And when you have 1 inch of spray gear paint on with monolithic photo cell, you really get a lot more value.
Mm-hmm.
And for somebody to say that R value is such and such because it's such and such. Only, you know, when the other subject is resistance to heat or resistance to cold.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the biggest problem with all this is, people say, well, this is, where it won't end up through something else. Only God can make a complete
Right.
barrier. So when I know they've qualified the barrier component, but it is an improper time to use shipping terminals.
Right. Right. What Billy is getting at is R value is actually very temperature sensitive. The R value of ISO at 110 degrees is a lot less than it is at 75 degrees. And then the other interesting thing about ISO is it has a lower R value at 40 degrees than it does at 75. So if you look at the R value curve on ISO, it's actually a frown. It does this. Do we insulate buildings for 75 degrees? I open the windows on the truck. I don't run the air conditioner. When it's cold in Chicago, I close the windows. Okay? Did an article on that in August if you want more information. This issue is probably going to be my retirement gig 5-10 years from now. And I might hurt somebody's feelings on this, but so be it. You guys been seeing this ad in the trade press? Ace Fasteners. They're a company out of New Jersey importing fasteners out of China. And the first couple of imports were just hellacious. They import in container loads. Sold many, many containers, many ships to a large distributor in this country. Then after that, they sold to a large manufacturer. And Ace was representing that their factory mutual approved. They weren't. When they started putting ads in the magazines, I started getting calls about these products. And the calls were, shanks are bending, nail tips aren't sharp enough to penetrate a deck, and then the big one is fastener heads popping off. So I called my counterpart at Factory Mutual, Phil Smith, and said, Phil, tell me about the approvals you have on Ace Fasteners. He goes, we don't have an Ace. Oh, that's interesting. See the ad the next month, call Phil back. What's going on with Ace? Well, they've called and we've submitted a proposal. But they're not approved, right? No. This has gone on for 2 years now. They're misrepresenting compliance. This ad was opposite my column in the magazine a couple of months ago. So I decided we're going all out. Notice the FM diamond, but also notice the asterisks. Probably about the second year in engineering school, I realized was taught, read the smallest font on the page first. The nice thing about PowerPoint and projectors and screens is you can take something small and blow it up. So that's the FM approval that they have. Well, they have an FM approval on a number 12 that's 2 3/8 inch long. When was the last time you used that fastener? Or did you ever use that fastener? That ad was from July. And then they talk about private labeling, which is basically their manufacturing product for a different manufacturer, but if it's private labeled, it should be in the FM directory somewhere. It's not. So if you dive in the RoofNav, which is Factory Mutual's online application, you can actually find them. And they actually have now gone out and gotten some approvals on 7 different products. So this is the list on number 15. This is new within the last couple of weeks. The point to be made is if you've been using these fasteners over the course of the last 2.5 years, you have a liability problem on your hands because they're representing something they didn't have. I'm going to strongly encourage you to buy fasteners from the membrane manufacturer. And let the membrane manufacturer deal with the fastener manufacturer. Listen to feedback from your field guys. The complaints I hear about these right now is fastener heads popping off. And when the guys start raising the flag on that, something's going on. You know, that's an issue that we haven't seen in the industry in probably about 20 years. And then if you see anything, give me a call. I'm assuming at some point their lawyers are going to give me a call and say, really nice if you quit slamming us in presentations. And my response to that is, it would be really nice if you quit misrepresenting your factory mutual approvals and creating a liability situation for roofing contractors. And what's the name of your insurance company? Because we're going to have a chat with them. Speaking of factory mutual, I don't know if any of you do factory mutual work, but the factory mutual Bible is something called RoofNav. There's a new edition of RoofNav that's out being beta tested. This is a news release as of September 12th. And that's what the new RoofNav looks like. A little bit of a disclaimer, but they're seeking feedback, and that's what it looks like. So if you're doing FM work and playing around with RoofNav, give Factory Mutual some feedback. It's one of those rare situations where Factory Mutual is asking for your opinion. They usually only get it from me, and it's not complimentary. This has been a big deal in Texas. Are you guys familiar with field wind uplift testing? Consultant from South Carolina came in and took a look at a bunch of your schools. Test didn't work out too well. He got together with an attorney and filed a bunch of insurance claims against Factory Mutual because Factory Mutual was insuring the schools. Steve Badger, an attorney here in Dallas, defends Factory Mutual. So Steve's handling all these now. 5x5 chamber, I don't know if you've ever seen this. Then what's inside the chamber, we create a negative pressure, and then there's a deflection gauge. And depending on the roof system type, you're looking for a deflection of less than a ½ inch, an inch, something like that. That's not very much under high pressures. I've contended for years this test is, I'll give you a technical term, bullshit. Okay. We did an industry issue update on it in June of 2015. We actually did a survey of NRCA contractors around the country, and I just said, guys, in the last 6 months of the factory mutual uplift tests you did, don't tell me the specifics, I just want to know how many passed or failed. Passing rate of 55%. If I only got a 55 when I was in grade school, I would still be in Sister Camille's 5th grade. First of the year, I did an article on this, said we're doing some work at ASTM on this test. And what we did is what's called an inter-laboratory study. In other words, we got 8 labs together. We built identical roof system specimens, and we had the 8 labs test each of the specimens. In other words, am I going to get the same results as you get on an identical specimen? This is kind of nerd to the 4th power, okay? We tested an FM class 90 system. In other words, it should pass up to 90 pounds. We each did 3 tests, test in 15-pound increments, measure membrane deflection. ASTM oversaw it. In other words, ASTM statistics nerd oversaw it. Oh, forgot to tell you, we did this at Factory Mutual. So they got to oversee it. Their senior guy in charge of approvals collected the data. ASTM statistical nerds said we had statistical outliers as low as the 15-pound test increment. That shouldn't be happening. By the time we got up to 30, 45, 60, and 90 pound, we have data all over the board. Some of the statistical outliers were so great that ASTM said we can't consider that data. "16 of the 24 specimens failed less than 190 at factory mutual. When we did this testing, I made a decision not to be there because I didn't want it to be said that I tampered with anything. I was over 1,000 miles away. I sent 2 of my guys, Maciek and Kurt, to do this. Maciek is so anal retentive. We had the best results up here with no variability of any of the 8 labs. It probably wouldn't have been that way if I was there. I would have screwed something up. No, this is a couple months ago. If we take this data and apply FM's criteria to it, half-inch maximum deflection, this, that, and the other thing, we had 5 specimens fail at half of the design test load. And we had the rest of them fail at the next increment. So all these tests failed factory mutual's criteria at factory mutual. Last month's issue of the magazine has an article on this. We now have data that says there's no correlation between the field uplift test and factory mutual's classifications. Therefore, why are people using this for a quality control measure? Continued use of this test method is irresponsible. That's the strongest language that's ever come out of NRCA. We've also sent the results to the president of Factory Mutual and said, we're asking you to immediately suspend this test. Haven't heard back from them, but I'll be on the East Coast the week after next. I'll stop by and say hi. Over the years, we've talked a lot about vapor retarders and moisture in concrete. NRCA is recommending a vapor retarder over concrete roof decks to keep the moisture in concrete from infiltrating into the roof system. As I've made that recommendation over the years, you guys push back at me. Well, how do you know the vapor retarder is going to remain stuck? Well, that's an incredibly common sense question. So we went out and tested it. Tested 5 different applications, the first of which was a 2-ply built-up. Why do we test that? Does anybody actually do that anymore? Some do. But that's something that works. That's why we tested it. So it's a baseline. Then we tested 4 peel and sticks. Does the manufacturer make a difference? Yes, but I'm not going to tell you who the manufacturers are because that's not the point. Built some concrete mock-ups. You can probably recognize this primer. Concrete mock-ups were cured 28 days, and we installed the vapor retarders. Some we primed and mopped, some were applied directly to the deck. If the manufacturer says broom or roll the vapor retarder, we broomed or rolled it. We followed the rules. By the way, a real roofer did the mopping, not me. Okay. Concrete specimens were conditioned for 28 days. Why 28 days? Because that's what the concrete nerds say. Not that it means anything, but we just followed what the nerds say. We conditioned the specimens. In other words, the vapor retarders were on the 28-day-old concrete roofs for 60 days. And then we did 2 replicates. One we just let sit in the lab. The other we were a little bit sneaky. We applied heat underneath them. Built a little box and raise the temperature 30 degrees underneath. Why did we do that? Because that's actually replicating what's going on inside a building. The temperature is not the same above and below the roof deck. When you have higher temperature below the roof deck, the direction of vapor drive is up. In other words, Mother Nature is trying to delaminate or peel the vapor retarder off. And then we did pulls. Let me explain how you do this. You don't actually pull a vapor retarder off of a deck. You actually have to glue a plywood block to it. Then you pull the plywood block off. Okay. Two-ply built-up numbers. No vapor drive, 1,400 pounds. With vapor drive, 800 pounds. The reduction is about 600 pounds, a 41% decrease. That seems like a lot, doesn't it? Let's wrap our heads around that number. That's 9 times factory mutual 190. That's a pretty good safety factor. So while we lost 41%, we're still 9 times more than we need to be. Here's the other numbers. These really surprise me. I've been doing this long enough, we try to predict results before we do the test. And about 90% of the time we're wrong, which means that's why we're testing. If we knew all the answers, we wouldn't have to test. Or Brad, as Maciek points out to me, you're not as smart as you think you are. Look at some of these drop-offs, though. That one only dropped 4%. That's pretty cool. Mother Nature doesn't affect that one. What the heck is going on there? That one got stronger when vapor drive was applied to it. First thing I said to Maciek, who ran this, is, I think it's the primer. And he proceeded to tell me how stupid I am, because the same private label primer is used in this specimen and that specimen. So there's something going on in the modified which is affecting its ability to remain tacky and stick to a concrete deck. It's pretty interesting. But the point being, all the numbers are well above 90 pounds per square foot, or the failure rate for a factory mutual 190 system. So the moral of the story, guys, is get a vapor retarder on a concrete deck. Let's not worry about whose it is, what it is. Get it installed properly and get it stuck down. And I can tell you just from experience and having been on a bunch of these roofs, if you can get the vapor retarder covered right away with the roof system, you have a lot better chance of that vapor retarder not blistering. On the other hand, if that vapor retarder is out as a temporary roof, it's going to blister a little bit. Cut the blisters out and patch it. But get the vapor retarder in. Going to encourage designers to consider vapor retarder adhesion. Manufacturers should incorporate some type of conditioning in their product data. If they want to steal the test method we put together, go ahead, I don't care. Some data is better than no data at all. Article on that also. A couple of other topics. And if you get a copy of these handouts, these topics are not going to be in the handouts. We talked a little bit about this, but design wind speed considerations in the map of the United States. In Texas, we're designing somewhere between 105 and 160 miles an hour, depending on where we are in the state. Pressures, or wind speeds, get converted into pressures mathematically, and that's how we design roofs. We design roofs for pressures, okay? However, in warranties will typically mention wind speeds. Let me check what my next slide is. Okay. There's a British sailor called Buford who kind of quantified winds in the maritime arena back in the 1700s, and this is what we typically see in a lot of warranties. We see warranty language that's going to say, this roof is warranted for a strong gale. What is that? 54 miles an hour. Or sometimes in some of the lower level shingle warranties, you'll see a warranty exclusion of 60 miles an hour. Even in the membrane side, we see warranty exclusions as low as 56 miles an hour. By code in Texas, you're required to design to 105, or what did I say, 105 to 160, depending on where you are in the state. So who's responsible in between? I'm going to encourage you guys to be cautious of this. And we have now a number of situations. I actually have a stack of job files on my desk about this high, where a roof is experiencing blistering or ridging or wrinkling, and the contractor, on behalf of the building owner, submits a warranty claim back to the manufacturer. The manufacturer goes to somebody like ProLogic and they run a meteorological report on that building address since the roof was installed. And will come back and say, since your roof was installed in 2015, that building has experienced 27 days of wind speeds greater than the exclusion in the warranty. So our warranty is no longer in effect.
It didn't mean blow off?
No, it's used as an excuse. No wind damage. It's used as an excuse. Now, the problem I have with that scenario, and what is common, is we have contractors working with the manufacturer filing the warranty claim. Who does the manufacturer send a letter to? The building owner. And the contractor usually doesn't hear about it. The building owner is pissed, or the building owner has already hired their attorney to file suit against the contractor for breach of contract based on not complying with the building code. I have more than handfuls of these claims sitting on my desk. And Steve Phillips, the attorney we work with, is in a similar situation. This wind speed issue is an epidemic right now. So I want you to be aware of it, both shingles and on membrane roof systems. I don't know what to recommend to you folks. Is it encouragement to sell wind warranties? I, in good conscience, can't do that because I've never seen a wind warranty pay off. Is my recommendation to you folks, make sure the wind exclusion in your warranty, your contractor's warranty, matches what's in the manufacturer's warranty? I have to drive Steve Phillips around Phoenix next week, and driving him around, I'll be Steve's Uber driver. The nice thing about being an attorney's Uber driver is you get a lot of free legal advice. So that's what I'll be posing to him right now. I am seeing this as one of the largest claims in the roofing industry right now. So I don't have an answer for you folks, but beware, okay? This fall, I'm doing a bunch of programs for insurance captives. I don't know if you know what an insurance captive is. A group of contractors that get together and form an insurance company, and they insure the group instead of going to an outside company. The advantage of a captive is if you have good performance, the profits go in the contractor's pocket instead of the insurance company's pocket. And one of the things the insurance captives are asking me to talk about is how roofing contractors are damaging decks and causing insurance claims. At the same time, we're doing some work with the University of Massachusetts in Amherst on roof deck loading, and that's jointly with the Steel Deck Institute and the Metal Building Manufacturers Association. you folks realize a pallet of shingles is going to weigh about 4,200 pounds? I think you realize that, but do you realize what that is if you put it on a roof? By the way, we are seeing OSHA citations based on shingle loading with shingles stacked higher than two bundles right now. Where is OSHA getting a 2-bundle limit? It's actually something written up in the Truss Association's design guidelines. In OSHA is citing based on the general duty clause then. Shingles are heavy, folks, and when we stack them, loads get high. Pallet of TPO, well over a ton. Mod bit cap sheet, about 2,500 pounds. I'll be polite here. Glass-faced gypsum board. Everybody knows what that is, okay? About the same weight as a pallet of modified. And these are weights for a 4x4. Bonding adhesive, that's kind of heavy too. Even ISO is about up to 500 pounds per bundle, and how many of us hoist 2-bundle lifts? So that could be 1,000 pounds. The point to be made is we are concentrating a lot of load in very isolated areas on roofs. And where we get ourselves in trouble is, do we ever put 2 bundles of ISO right next to each other on a roof? Or 4 bundles? Or 6 bundles? Do we ever spread the bonding adhesive out all over the roof? No, we drop it in one place. Let me tell you a little bit about how roof decks are designed, and this is the advantage of being an engineer. Steel roof deck is designed a hypothetical 3-span condition. In other words, 4 joists, 3 spans, probably 15 feet. In the failing design deflection criteria is a 200-pound point load at the center point of one of the spans. What's a 200-pound point load? I'm actually a little heavier than that last night because I had a steak at Vic Anthony's. And it was good. And dessert. And El Gratin potatoes. So I'm a point load failure beyond belief today. So whenever you're putting something on a roof and putting it in one location and it weighs more than me, you're theoretically failing the deck in deflection. I'm a lot lighter than everything here, okay? So we really need to take a look at how we load decks. The research will probably be out later this fall. I'm not sure we're going to publish it because it might not be good for us. Some things to think about though, folks. We really need to take a look at our deck loading and how we do this. And this is a combination of us and distribution. Is whoever's loading the roof aware of joist or rafter orientation? Probably not. They should be. If we can have bundles straddle 2 joists instead of parallel to joists, we're saving ourselves. We should space bundles, pallets, spot loads across joist framing members, use additional dunnage if need be. I'll tell you one of the claims that we're seeing and why the insurance folks are raising it is 12 and 15 foot rolls of TPO membrane set on a deck parallel to bar joists between joists. That's a lot of load in a concentrated area that's creating problems. How would you alleviate that? Turn the roll. Run it across bar joists instead of parallel to it. You're using the joist to your advantage instead of your disadvantage. My point with all this is, let's just think it out a little bit. And if it helps to show some of those numbers to your field folks that load jobs, go ahead and do it. You guys know this because they wrestle this stuff around the roof. It's just, I don't think they're understanding the magnitude of it. I'm the test point load on a steel deck, or pretty much all you folks are. We're all about the same size. Once you get bigger than us, it's an issue. Okay? Let's see if I have anything else here. Anybody else have anything want to talk about? Billy, I think you have one.
I do.
Reason I know that is he sent me an email the other day, said I have a topic for you at the end of your presentation on Friday. Let me just plug two things and I'll ask questions for you guys. International Roofing Expo, our convention is in Las Vegas the first week in February. These dates are the Tuesday through Thursday before the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. So Vegas is going to be busy. I have two recommendations for you. Hotel rooms are going to be a premium. We got pretty good room rates in our reserve room block, but there will be a point in time we have to give that block up. So if you're going to get hotel rooms, I'm going to suggest you do it early, or you're going to be paying Super Bowl rates. The other thing is the Super Bowl brings in more people than the Las Vegas airport's capacity in a week. So airfares are going to be nuts. Get your air rates, get your airfares quickly if you're coming along. The Roofing Expo website is where all the information is at. This is all my contact information. If you've heard me present before, you realize all my presentations are on my personal website, markramnrca.com. If anything ever comes up or you see anything unusual or want a reality check or what have you, give us a call. We're here to help you. If you're an NRCA member, you're always welcome to call. If you're not an NRCA member, we will still answer your call, but there's a 50% chance the answer is complete bullshit because you're not paying my salary, okay? So the numbers are with you if you're a member. You have a 50-50 chance if you're not. And I'll be real honest with you, over half of our calls are non-members and we only BS a couple of them a year. So Billy, you had a question that came through as an email, but I said, I'm going to see you, so let's just answer it in a class. Go ahead.
Well, again, the customer, the roofing contractor, is research and development on what it's working on. And ice and water shield in Texas and Florida is exceeding the limits of the ice and water shield membrane. It's melting and running out of the eaves and down the valleys of a lot of these real expensive houses. I have a
So you got this high-end house that's looking like it's having flowing pitch on the roof from back in the olden days. And the building owner's probably not too happy.
well, they're both lawyers, so
Oh, you already said it's expensive house, so yeah, he's a lawyer or a doctor, right?
you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we put this house roof on with Temco 5 years ago, and there's a lot of this going on right now in Texas. I'm not the only guy, but and we have a call from the customer says this asphalt is running out, dripping off the eaves onto my brick a lot, and onto my wood, this mansion, and oh my God. So we got out there, my daughter did, the guy, and yeah, it sure was. And it's a metal roof over ice and water shield, a Tamco ice and water shield. And supposedly everybody has, a lot of people have temperature compliance.
High-tech information.
But I'm not really sure about all the technology of this, but I can tell you it will scare you to death. And especially, you know, male and female, while you're living in this mansion and you have a metal roof that's put on beautifully, and you have the asphalt ripping out. What are you gonna do? Well, first off, you cannot tear it off today carefully enough.
No, it won't come off.
This asphalt is liquid, and it's because the heat under the metal roof will exceed whatever the ability of that to stay unliquefied.
What color is the metal?
Sir?
What color are the metal panels?
It's a light color. Light color.
Relatively light? Okay.
Relatively, yes, sir. It's not black or blue or green or yellow. It's probably a slight tan. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the color of the metal, but there's millions of dollars of lawsuits out there.
Yeah, there are. It's relatively frequent claim and call we get. Let me give you some dangling points of data, and if we can put them together, we will. If not, we'll learn we need to be smarter. We know from built-up roofing the softening point where asphalt begins to flow is somewhere between about 180 degrees and 210, depending on the type of the asphalt. That's an oxidized asphalt. In other words, air is blown into the asphalt in the refining plant. The asphalt that goes into a peel and stick modified is not necessarily air blown. It could be straight asphalt, it could be modified a bit. But from ASTM, we know that that asphalt is going to begin to flow somewhere at about 140 degrees. Then there are high temp peel and sticks, but there is no test method. We have not agreed in the industry how to test high temp. So high temp, I want you to realize, is a marketing term. It's not a technical term. High temp to Tamco doesn't mean the same as high temp to Grace or whatever they call themselves this year. So there's differences between products. If you look at the product literature on any of these peel and stick modifieds, they're going to say something about maybe incompatible with wood and OSB. Isn't that where they're made to be used, to be stuck to wood or OSB? But the issue is there is incompatibility with petroleum-based bitumens and the resins that are in plywood, OSB, in the glues and things along that line. And the end result is the asphalt, depending on what the sheathing is going to be chemically incompatible and actually lower the softening point between about that, lower than that 140. You have a situation where you have a metal roof in Texas, which is probably getting up to who knows what temperature. I would say probably conservatively about 120, 130, maybe a little bit higher than that. 25 degrees higher than ambient. Comfortably, I can say that. And why are you seeing a problem? The roof is reflective, right? The challenge, though, is metal holds heat. Metal has a high emissivity. And what is going on is the heat is being held on that peel and stick modified. That's not working and playing well with the deck underneath. And it's doing what it's going to do. It's going to flow itself downhill. I guess the question becomes, what should you do or what should you have done? I don't know if the industry has an answer for that. I can tell you what we've been seeing this issue in Florida and what folks at about our experience level in Florida are doing, friends of ours. They're nailing a base sheet first and then putting the peel and stick down. In other words, they're isolating the peel and stick from the resins in the plywood. That defies logic to me. But interestingly enough, it's working. We are also seeing peel and stick modifieds that have the plastic or polymer film on the top surface, not flowing as quite as readily as others. But we very definitely need, I think, better guidance from manufacturers or an ASTM standard that defines what high temp is. And I'm going to submit to you, we probably need several different levels of high temp, because high temp to me in Chicago is a lot different than high temp to you. And high temp to somebody in Phoenix is probably different than what high temp is here. A one-size-fits-all answer in the roofing industry is obviously not working. It's not going to be comforting to you, Billy, but I've heard of a bunch of these, and it always seems like it's on doctors' and lawyers' houses, and they get overly wound up about. My other recommendation on these jobs is put gutters on them, so they don't see it. So the asphalt's running into the gutters. Yeah, yeah. And the valleys become the biggest area because the valley is probably not well ventilated. So the valley is running a little bit hotter than the field of the roof. And then the valley also has two surfaces coming into one, so it's concentrating the problem.
It's really exciting.
I like that. I like that. It's real exciting. I hope you let me use that. I wish I had an answer for it, but we are seeing a lot of it.
But shouldn't we have standards?
We're seeing more of it under metal roofs than we are under shingles. And I think that's because of the emissivity, the ability of a metal roof to hold heat for a longer time. Should we have standards? Yes, I've been arguing for that Billy, if need be, at the next ASTM meeting I go to in December, I'll threaten to bring you along at the next one if they don't understand the problem.
Meanwhile, back in the range.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Like I said, you're not the only one, though. So, anybody else? Go ahead. No. I'm going to decide on how polite I am here. I was at a manufacturer's plant. I've only seen peel and stick run once in a plant. You ever been in a shingle plant or a felt plant? You know, they run at a line speed that's like, wow, that's fast. This peel and stick plant was running at 1,150 feet a minute. Think about that. That plant is running as fast as the robot can pull rolls off the end of the roll. And usually some guy at the end trying to corral things on a pallet. My point being, there's not a whole heck of a lot of quality control in a peel and stick modified. There's a lot of variability between manufacturers, between runs, between lots. It's a bit of the Wild West. Or I'm in Texas, I'll say Wild West, Texas. And that's also why I think the manufacturers aren't willing to commit to a standard for it. We do see the problem a lot more on metal roofs than we do shingle. But like I said, Billy, our peers in Florida, I'm talking peers experience-wise, are nailing a base first and putting a peel and stick on as kind of a cap sheet instead of an ice and water shield type product. And it's not flowing. So I don't know if that's isolation from the deck or if that's the surface on the flowing surface of the peel and stick that's being held together. So. Well, if we wouldn't have these things, it wouldn't be fun, right? Anybody else? Okay. My time is up. good to see everybody. I always enjoy RCAT and enjoy being with you folks. I'll be around for a little bit if anybody has any questions, but thanks for coming. And if there's anything we can do to help, give us a call. All right?
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks. Appreciate it, guys.